All right, Katie Jean is a coach who helps professionals restore self trust, rebuild confidence, and step into their power so they can protect their time, energy, and peace at work. Her platform work is not family, reframes the idea that your job should feel like family, and instead champions clear boundaries, emotional safety, and rejecting workplace trauma. Katie, I think this is a super important topic because a lot of people struggle with bad work environments today.
Yes, they do. So thank you so much for having me on. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you for coming. Can you give a little bit history and where did work is not family come from? How did you come up with that?
Sure. It's a long story, so I'll try to keep it concise. My
That's
background
all
is
right.
okay. My background, so I worked in corporate America for 15 years in insurance. Kind of rose the ranks, did what I was supposed to do, got the next promotion till eventually I was managing a team, and it was like fine. It was like a good place to work. It just was never fulfilling to me. Like I always wondered, is this really what I'm supposed to be doing with my life? Like I just always felt like something was missing. So I was able to transition out of corporate America in my 40s and kind of switch industries, which in and of itself isn't super easy to do. But I found a company that recruited for insurance companies. So I was like, okay, here's my in. And so I was able to start this new role being a recruiter, which was really around all the stuff that I loved about work, like just talking about what motivates people, what doesn't, where do you get joy at work, like talking about leadership and career paths. Like that's the side of work that I always really liked, the people side of it. And it ended up being a really toxic work environment. I took to the job like really easily, like I was good at it right away. I liked the people that I worked with. I became very close friends with one person in particular. And so it started out really good. My boss at the time was love bombing me. So again, I didn't know that that's what was going on, but it was a lot of like, you're such a good culture fit here. You belong here. This has been your family all along. You're going to make so much money. I'm going to fast track you. Like, this is really just where you belong, where your family. And it really was everything that I wanted to hear, especially since I had spent 15 years, like, really trying to figure out where I did belong. And plus, I liked the job. And plus, I was going to make so much money there. It was like everything was coming together. And I was just really happy to be there for about 4 months, and then the wheels kind of started to fall off. I mean, essentially, the my boss was really, I would call it grooming. It was a lot of, like, coercive, covert control and manipulation where I didn't really know that it was happening, and it sort of just gradually increased and increased and increased. And I was kind of like, I can handle it. I've got this because that's kind of who I am. Like no one's going to tell me what I can do. Like I've got this. I can take care of this. And then eventually his just started to be so much and the favoritism started to be so much and kind of what started as groups, teams chat led to individual teams chat, led to text messages outside of work. Everything just sort of kept escalating and escalating and escalating until finally I really started to feel my fight or flight kick in. I really started to feel like, okay, maybe I don't got this. So it ended up getting reported, and the CEO of the company, this was a smaller company, there was no HR, there was no HR department. So the CEO
Yeah.
kind of pulled us all into a room to figure out what was going on. And it was in that moment that my body really started to have a reaction to what was happening. Whatever the CEO said made me feel minimized and just really dismissed, like everything that I was feeling was not valid or was not being seen. And I didn't know it at the time, but I had some old trauma come up in that moment. I was sexually assaulted about 20 years before this by a coworker, and I had gone to the police and they also didn't take it seriously. And so here I was finding myself in a conference room, with an emotionally abusive male boss and a CEO who was minimizing me. And my body made the connection that this was really similar to what had happened to me before and went into like full alert mode. And I started uncontrollably shaking. and like just physically shaking until I had to just get up and leave and go to the bathroom and lay on the floor and cry for 10 minutes until it all came out of me. But that day was a turning point for me. I felt really physically damaged. I still didn't even know at the time that that was trauma. I just was kind of like, what was that? Like, what just happened to me? And why do I feel like I have this gaping wound inside of my chest? It took me about 9 months after that incident to leave that workplace and go to a new job. Even though everyone's like, just leave, just get a new job. And I was like, well, one, why should I have to? I didn't do anything wrong. I like this job. I'm going to make a lot of money here. Like, why should I have to leave? And then the other side of me was like, where am I going to go? I just spent 15 years at this insurance company. I don't want to go back there. This is the only job that I've had since then. I haven't been here that long. Like, where am I going to go? Everyone made it sound so easy. Like, just go get another job, Katie. What's the problem? So I fought that for a really long time. And then about 9 months later, so I was at that company for about a year and a half. I ended up going to a new company and became an HR consultant. So that was the interesting thing. I started a job in HR, so I got to really learn the system. I really tried to learn about my experience and what I had been through the eyes of the employer and through the eyes of risk management. And while at the same time, I enrolled in a trauma-informed coaching and leadership certification. And so I learned about trauma and the nervous system and what was actually happening physiologically in my body at the time. And it took me about 6 months to really start to feel healed. I did a lot of work on myself and I'm in a really good place now. I feel really good. I'm grateful for the experience that I had and that it got me here because now I started a business that I've branded Work Is Not Family to help other people that are struggling in the workplace because there are a lot and there's not a lot of resources to help them.
No, especially if the company doesn't have an HR department, as you were saying, yours didn't. So, and I worked in a similar place, which was the same way. There was no HR, so there's no one to go to. So if the owner is the problem, then you're in
Mhm.
real trouble because nobody cares then. You're just kind of out of luck, you know. So
For sure, for sure. And they're always going to look at it through their own risk management eyes. And even if they had HR, that's how HR is going to look at it too. That's HR's job is to manage risk for the company and minimize that risk. So, I don't really know if they had HR, what would have gone differently. Maybe it would have been better, maybe it wouldn't. I don't know. But to your point, when there's no HR, it makes it really hard.
yeah. What's the first thing someone should do if they feel like they're being harassed or just being treated unfairly? What's the first thing that they should do?
There's just so many variables and there's so many reasons that people are traumatized in the workplace. And it certainly can be from harassment and discrimination and hostile work environment and retaliation. Like all those things that are really legally protected can certainly cause a lot of that. And yet there's also a lot of things that the law is fine with. Like emotional abuse is not illegal. Extreme
Really?
favoritism is not illegal. Yeah, it might be inappropriate. It might be against the code of conduct. There might be something in your handbook about it, but the law is it's a different thing.
Hmm.
So depending on what's going on for you, most of the advice you will get is go tell HR. And that may be the right thing to do, but it may also not be the right thing to do. So, I mean, really, if you're finding yourself in a situation where you just feel like you are being traumatized by your current workplace, finding a safe person that's not going to judge you and not going to minimize you, just finding a safe person, whether that's a coach or a therapist, someone that you can really talk to about everything that you're experiencing so that you can figure out what is the best plan of attack. Because what people will tell you to do might not help you.
Yeah. They should call you.
You should call me because I will be a safe person. And that is really the thing. A lot of times when you are being traumatized, when you're actively like living through trauma, your nervous system is so out of whack, you're so dysregulated that you already feel unsafe. Like I felt unsafe in my own body. And so it was really easy for people around me to be unsafe. All it took was for them to say like one thing that seemed judgmental to me or seemed to be blaming me or one piece of unsolicited advice. And I was like, oh, okay, you're creating shame in me. That's one more person that's not safe. And so it can be really lonely.
Oh, yeah, because at that point you become really aware of red flags, even if they're not. But because you're so stressed out that everything seems to be now, nobody is safe to be around. So,
Yes. Yeah.
what
And that's,
can I'm sorry, go ahead.
oh, sorry. I just was going to say that is one thing that I learned about the nervous system is, when you're dysregulated, when your body is picking up on threats, your nervous system is going to shift to prepare you to fight those threats. And when you're perceiving threats, you're gonna see threats. And that's something that was happening to me. I was so dysregulated for so long because there were actual threats around me that it really made me see threats where they didn't exist. I would be sitting at my desk and somebody would walk by and be like, "Hi, Katie." And I would jump. I would be so startled because I just was always like so on guard. So even things like that. And then what happened was that kind of got turned around on me to say, like, well, if you're looking for something, you're going to see it. So you are now seeing things and you're now coming up with complaints with things that don't really exist. And that was kind of used in a way to make me seem unstable, which is something that, the system will do to help them with liability.
How can someone start rebuilding self-trust after this?
For me, it was all about learning about trauma and the nervous system. So, understanding the science behind our bodies and what happens when you go through a situation like this. So, when we think about trauma, how I think of it is, it's not the event, it's not what actually happened, it's the impact of the event. It's something that's so distressing that it becomes difficult to cope with. Your system can't cope and it creates a wound inside of you. And that gaping wound that I felt inside of me, like that was trauma. And because we're not really taught about that and because we don't really understand the science of that, we end up creating a lot of shame. Like it can create a lot of shame and judgment for ourselves. And a lot of times what I have found and the people that I've coached is that there can be an element of blindsided, like being blindsided. And when you are blindsided and you're like, oh, I didn't see this coming. How did I miss this? And your nervous system is looking for threats, then you start thinking, well, what else am I not really seeing clearly? Like, what else is around me that I think is real that's not? Like, is the sky even blue?
Right.
And right? And like that's the real damage, like to not be able to trust your own judgment. There's nothing that feels worse than that. Like that is the definition of feeling unsafe in your body. How do you recover from that? For me, that was the first step is like, this is what's happening. Like your body was made to do this. Your brain's job is to protect you and to keep you alive and to keep you away from pain. And so when your body picked up on threat, our bodies have this process called neuroception where it's scanning our environment looking for threat, trying to figure out, are we safe or are we in danger? My body picked up on danger based on my past experiences. And its job then is to alert me of that, which it does through the nervous system. So all of those signals that I was getting over months and months, really the anxiety, the sleepless nights, the upset stomach, that fight or flight that I was really that was kicking in for me. That was all my body trying to help me. It was my body trying to save me and mobilize me to get away from the threat. And I was like, no, you're fine.
Yeah. Well, we all like to think that people are predominantly good. So sometimes when you're in a work environment, you just think that everybody's there. We're all just here to do a job and nobody's going to hurt anybody or talk bad about each other, but it does happen quite
Yeah.
often. Uh, and, in my instance, it was very difficult for me to stay because I like especially for a guy because I wanted to punch him. I would have wanted to just punch him in the face. That was my that was my answer for it. So I'm like, okay, I have to get out of here before something terrible happens here
What was your
because
experience?
well, he just so I got hired in as on a startup as production managers. I set up it was a custom closet and cabinet shop. And so I set up the shop. I had my own remodeling business, so a lot of carpentry skills. So I set up the shop and everything. It was countless, countless hours for about a year and a half getting it started up and getting everything running. And once he started making money on it, he started yelling at people for whatever, just come in and yell if something did anything that didn't go right. He was very, very childish like that. So yeah, and he left me alone for a while because he knew I
Mhm.
was, very important to the startup. So he left me alone. But once everything was running smooth and he started making money, it was just a completely different person. And
Mm.
I just got to the point where I couldn't do it anymore. I had to find an exit strategy and just
Mhm.
leave. So yeah, and sadly I loved the job when like I said, a year and a half I was working, 60-hour weeks every week, every weekend, and I loved it. I loved what I was doing, but sadly one person can ruin that. And it's just a shame, really.
Yeah, and like you said, like, if you're a good person, if you're an honest person, then that's kind of what you expect in other people, and if something comes up, then you kinda give them the benefit of the doubt, and honestly, most of us are conditioned to do that, and
Yeah.
yet, some people do have ulterior motives. Not everybody comes from the same place, and a lot of those people are in positions of power, and the workplace is a great place to abuse your power because people are dependent on the job for money to pay their bills.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wish I would've turned him in for a hostile work environment, but I didn't. I just left and got out of there and left it behind. But, when I think about that even now, what's stopping him now from just yelling at people that are there?
Mhm.
They're gonna suffer now that nobody says anything about it. And I did, one time, but not long before I left, I chased him out of my office. He knew at that point that was he knew not to yell at me anymore after that for sure. But
Yeah,
yeah, it's
I mean, maybe reporting it would have done something or maybe it wouldn't have, and maybe it would have just prolonged your suffering, and so, I mean, that's just one thing I think we gotta do what we gotta do to take care of ourselves, and for some people, that is pushing back and fighting and filing complaints and getting a lawyer. In my experience, a lot of people don't want to do that. They just want this to stop, they
mm,
just wanna feel better, they just wanna go back to their life. They're not trying to get into a 2-year legal battle with a company that has way more money than they do. But that's a personal choice, and we don't always win either. Like, when you fight it and you file things or you get a lawyer, I actually did see a lawyer, and it didn't really help me. Cost me money and didn't really get me anywhere.
that's terrible. It's just I don't know. To me, and I've had a couple bosses that like to yell. And to me, if that's just not cool in any circumstance at all, any environment. I mean, it's so immature. And it definitely doesn't make you wanna work harder for that person, right? I
Mhm.
mean,
Yeah, like,
absolutely not.
it's 100% bad leadership, but, I think it's industry specific too. Like, it's more acceptable in hospitality and the restaurant business than it is necessarily in an office. So you may not get yelled at in an office, but you may get manipulated and emotionally abused in more covert ways. And it's never right anywhere. And that's kind of why I think it's important for us to talk about this, is because the system does not protect us. It just doesn't. There are laws that are out there. There's HR, there's policies and procedures, there's, you know, code of conduct, there's ways that we all should act. And I just speak to hundreds of people who are hurt by the system all the time. We still need to work. We still want to work. We still need to make money and earn a living and find our purpose. So that's really why I started Work Is Not Family too. Because how do we do that then? Like, how do we still work in systems that can be harmful for us?
How did you come up with that name? Work is not family.
Well, I just was trying to think of what can I say other than Katie Jean coaching? Like, how can I describe this other than just say my name? And just the more I thought about it, like that really describes it for me because it's not family. And what I have learned through my experience and working through my experience with work trauma and then also learning about trauma in the nervous system and then also being an HR professional and learning about HR. This is how I describe work. Work is an agreement. The employee agrees to do the tasks or the activities that are on their job description. And then in exchange for that, the employer agrees to pay them. And that's the
Seems pretty
agreement.
simple.
That's the agreement. Like, the employer is not agreeing to meet all of your emotional needs, to create psychological safety for you, to let you work there for as long as you want. Like, they're not agreeing to any of that. They're actually not agreeing to be your family. If the notion's out there that, hey, we're a family and that benefits the employer because that's going to make you loosen your boundaries or work extra hours without getting extra pay for it, overly extend yourself, take time away from your actual family in order to get the job done. The system's not going to tell you not to do that. They're going to take advantage of that. And are they wrong for that? I don't know. We're the ones that are doing that. And so I just think like the system's not going to change. So we have to change. We have to think about what this is. This is a contract. It is not a family. We have to think about what we have agreed to and what they have agreed to. And then we have to show up at work in a different way and in a way that protects ourselves.
So, do you think it's better to maintain a professional attitude when you're at work and not be I mean, it's okay to be friendly, I'm sure, but not be friends as you have friends outside of work and family.
Yeah, that's hard, right? Because sometimes your work friends are your favorite part of work. Like, what would we do without our work friends? How would we even get through the day? And so how I would answer that is be mindful, and think about who you are sharing what with and who you are trusting. And what's your nervous system telling you about that? Are you getting triggered at work? Are you dysregulated? Do you have some protective behaviors that are coming up that are causing you to maybe overshare or want connection with people that, you know, a coworker? Is there something of that going on? So it's really about you got to do some healing work on yourself. You got to go in and figure out what's going on with you. But for me, if I work with you and I trust you and you trust me, like I want to be your friend. We are still coworkers. And honestly, a
Yeah,
lot of times, no matter how much you love your coworkers, once you don't work together anymore, you don't see each other anymore. Doesn't mean
right.
that there's no love lost.
Going back to you said you were there for a few months after this all went down. What was the survival strategy for working there after this all happened?
Yeah, that's a great question. I wish I had a strategy. I wish I had had a strategy.
It was just survival mode, all right?
Yeah, I was being completely run by my trauma responses. I cried every single day. I was really on guard at work and really checked out at home. When I look back at that time, I have two sons. I don't know how present I was for those 9 months. Like my body couldn't handle it, and I did the best that I could, but it was not good. I was not in a good spot.
Yeah, it's hard because you're at work for a minimum of 8 hours, so 8 hours out of every day, you're dealing with a toxic environment, and then you have to go home and try to be a mom or a dad or whatever, and it's difficult. It really is because you come home and you just wanna crawl under a rock and hide, right?
Mm-mm.
And not even talk about it, so, yeah, I get it. It's difficult and you take it out on people you love and it creates a problem in your life for sure.
Yeah, and like you said, it's all for survival. So now looking back, I don't feel shame over that. I have compassion for myself and what my body was trying to do to survive. And that is the thing with work. Like you still have to go there and you still have to be around people that caused you trauma. and you are expected to meet certain professional expectations. I actually got feedback from my CEO during those 9 months after that happened on my vibe.
Hmm.
He told me he told me my vibe was negative and it was affecting other people,
Huh.
and if I was gonna be successful there, I needed to work on that.
Interesting. Yeah. The boss didn't get that. He didn't get that memo.
He did not get the memo. And like from his perspective, he was like, "Look, I have a company to run. Like we don't need to be friends, but we need to be professional and respectful. And we are here to do a job." Honestly, he couldn't fire me. Like now from the HR perspective, he couldn't fire me. I'm sure he would have if he could have, but he couldn't from a liability perspective. So we were kind of all just stuck there together
Well,
for a good while and it wasn't comfortable for anybody.
yeah. Yeah. What do you think companies can do to help this? I mean, are there steps that they could take to combat this from the beginning?
Yeah, that's a great question too. I mean, I am really a proponent of trauma informed leadership. So I actually spoke at an HR conference this morning about trauma informed leadership to a group of HR leaders because to me, that's the most important thing. Being a leader is hard. Running a business is hard. I don't take anything away from that. We often don't know what to do in these sort of high conflict situations. And we're thinking of the health of the business as well as liability, as well as retention and morale and culture. Like there's so many things that come into this. I don't think it's easy. But for me, there's trauma informed healthcare, there's trauma informed schools, there needs to be trauma informed workplaces. And what that looks like is everyone sort of understanding what trauma is, how it manifests, how to tell when someone's dysregulated. I mean, the talk that I gave this morning was really about if you have an employee who's dysregulated, it doesn't really matter what you say to them at the time because they're not really in their thinking brain, they're in their emotional brain. So, what we need to do instead is send signals of safety. We need to make sure that we are regulated. We need to pay attention to our body language, our tone of voice, what we say. We need to take breaks when we can. We need to give people some grace and we need to stop labeling behaviors. Because it was really easy for me to get labeled as negative or having a bad vibe, when in reality, I was like severely traumatized by your company.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any stories of clients that had a worse time than you did?
Well, I won't say better or worse because everybody's story is valid.
True.
I can tell you though that in my job as an HR consultant, I do a lot of outplacement work, which is career coaching after folks have been laid off. And in 2025, it's not a good job market. Lots of people have been getting laid off. So just this year alone, I've worked with hundreds of people after losing their jobs. Some people 30 years, 35, 39 years, I think was the longest tenure of getting from someone that got laid off. And that's hard. That's hard. What I've noticed from all of those conversations is that how much your identity is tied into your job affects how hard you take it when you don't have your job anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that for sure. Yeah.
Another story, this is a good one. I won't give any identifying information, but there was another situation that wasn't really unlike mine, and that there was a male boss who was showing too much favoritism to a female employee, and it was making everybody uncomfortable, but nobody really knew what it was or what to do about it. And then it turns out he was using AI to make graphic pictures of his employee.
What?
So
Oh,
that's
goodness.
happened.
Oh, man. Can't we all just get along?
Can't we just do our jobs? Like, that's the thing. Can't we just
Yeah.
show up and do our jobs and be good employees and take care of our customers and do good work and then go home? That's what most people want. And just unfortunately, it's so common that that's not what's happening.
Yeah. And I don't know, maybe there should be some kind of management course or something that you have to take to start a business or be a boss that teaches positive reinforcement and things like that, then maybe we wouldn't have so many bosses that are just incompetent assholes, to, for lack of better terms.
I do think I kind of put them in two groups. Like there's people who are just not they don't have great leadership skills, but they're not bad people. They're maybe not
Yeah,
that good. They're not that good at it. Maybe they're frustrating, maybe they're annoying, but they're not bad people. They're just not great leaders. And then there's a whole other subset of people that are narcissistic and abusive and are looking to abuse their power. And for those people, there's no training that's
yeah,
gonna make
that
them be any different.
that was my boss. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was right about everything. It didn't matter. It didn't matter what it was. He was always right. You couldn't. There was no negotiations, no compromise. Just
Mhm.
so he made my book though. How to Not Suck as a Human. He did make it in my book. So
Well, it sounds like he belongs in there. So,
like it gave me some great content.
well, it's nice when we move on and we can be in better spots and look back and laugh about it. But it's hard when you're in it. It's hard when you're in it.
It is. It is. And I was going through, I went through some really bad medical problems at the time. I'd broken my leg like 15 years prior, and they missed it when I got it x-rayed. So the bottom, all the way at my ankle, the bottom of my leg bone had cracked off essentially, but wasn't dislodged. But 15 years later, dislodged this piece of bone and cut all my tendons and ligaments out of my ankle. And it was a mess. So I had to have surgery. And I think I was supposed to be off for 8 weeks maybe. And I came back after 4 or 5 weeks. They took my cast off, put me in a walking cast. So I said, hey, you know what? I think I can come back in. So I came back in. And 3 days after I got in there, he came in my office and started yelling at me for missing too much work.
It's like, okay, dude.
Right? I was like, I thought he was joking. I said, are you being serious right now? Like, are you being serious? Because
Because you
yeah.
can't be being serious.
Yeah, yeah, he was serious.
And
Yeah.
that's the thing, like, just basic disrespect for, like,
Oh,
you
man.
being a human being.
Yeah, yeah, and then I had heart surgery a year later. I had to have, what is it, ablation because of AFib. So, and then it was the same thing. Like, I'm like, dude, you think I want to miss work because I'm having heart surgery? I mean,
Mhm.
I'd gladly not do it, but
Mhm.
yeah, it's incredible that there seems to be a lack of common sense too with people.
Yeah, and it's really, it's workplace specific. So they're not all workplaces are not bad, but there's always going to be something, right? Like there's just always going to be something. And so we have to figure out for ourselves, where do we draw the line? What's important to us? What can we control, and how we set boundaries or how we show up or how we regulate our nervous system during the workday. That's things we can control. And I always say, like, I'm okay with annoying. I'm not okay with abusive.
Yeah,
That's my
yeah,
line.
annoying's okay. Whatever. You can get over that. So when should somebody leave? Are there things that people should look for that they know it's time to, if they can't get help, it's time to leave that environment?
So you probably not aren't going to like this answer, but my answer for when somebody should leave is when they're ready.
Yep.
Especially in a job market like this, it's not that easy to get a job right now? And so I just think it's something to be mindful about. We have to be careful how much we tell other people they should leave or you should go get another job. It's really hard to get a job right now in certain industries. And that can just make people feel even more stuck. Or if they don't want to leave for certain reasons, like I said, why should I have to leave? I didn't do anything wrong. Or this is my dream job. I mean, sometimes this happens to people for jobs that they have worked their whole life for. And like in my situation, I liked my job. I liked my coworkers. Like I liked so many things about the companies. There was just a lot of great benefits. Like I did not want to leave. And for me, I just got to the point where I was like, I had become a shell of myself and I will never get out of this if I don't leave. And so the old cliche of like the pain of staying was more. And so I just had to leave. I had to take a pay cut. I had to leave my friends that I had been through a lot with. Like it was not easy to leave. And then even after that, the first 6 months of my new job were not easy because we think
Yeah.
leaving is going to solve our problems, but that trauma comes with us.
Yeah, now you have the stress of learning a new job and getting used to new people. So,
Yep. And then things that are coming up. So if in my new job, if it was like a normal routine, one-on-one conversation where they were going to give me feedback, like even the thought of that would put my nervous system into overdrive because of what I had gone through. And so now I'm emotionally activated in my new job and they don't know me. And they're kind of like, what's up with this person? Like, why is she on edge? Like, what does that mean? Did we hire the right person? Like, it honestly took me about 6 months. That's when I started learning about trauma. So that's what helped me come out of that. And I also think there was a grieving process, like I had to grieve the life that I didn't have anymore. That it wasn't my choice to not have that life anymore. It was taken away from me and it was a loss and I had to grieve it before I could move forward.
yeah. Have you had a job that you did not want to leave? I mean, like where the boss was, you had a great boss and
I've had a few great bosses in my life. I'm thinking back to when I was in corporate America. Even when I loved my bosses, the job wasn't right. So I still kind of always just wondered what I should be doing. And then I had where the job was right, but the boss was wrong. And now I'm in a really good spot. I like what I do now. I like the people that I work for, but I'm also really motivated to be my own boss. I'm kind of done.
yeah, me too. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
It- I, I can't even I can't even imagine going back to a job, especially I used to work in mills when I was doing shift supervisor and working midnight. Man, you want to talk about bad. You're in there with, 50 other people that are on midnight and gets any sleep and everybody is on edge. It's
Mhm.
just it's a total nightmare to throw someone into that environment.
Mhm.
But we do it all the time. 12 hours of midnight, and then we're not nocturnal beings. We're not supposed to stay up all night and sleep during the day. It's not
Mhm.
normal.
Mhm. Right, our system
Uh,
doesn't like it. And that's one thing that I try to talk to people about as much as I can through my coaching is like, what are you doing to make yourself marketable? Because again, I work with all these folks that have these long-term jobs and they're getting laid off. And it's like, okay, a lot of them are like 58, like too young to
Man,
retire, but like only a few more years or like really close to getting retirement. And here they are out in the workforce creating a resume for the first time.
man.
And I just again come back to like we need to protect ourselves, we need to look out for ourselves. And so what are you doing to make yourself marketable? So many people put their own personal development on the back burner because they're just too busy because they're just overloaded with work. Like we have to stop doing that. We need to take care of ourselves, diversify our income. Like I just really think about it as that and that's one way we can take our power back.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. Do anything on the side in your spare time to try to make yourself better or get another source of income coming in so that if this does happen, you at least have something to fall back on that, as you said, you're not 60 years old and out there looking for a job
And
in a
so many
field that yeah, you maybe not even know about. So, oh, I can't.
And so many people, I'm like, "Did you see this coming?" And they're like, "Well, I knew there would be like some layoffs, but I didn't think it would be me." Like nobody ever thinks it's going to be them.
Right, right. Yeah, we had a big mill here that I worked at, and we started the process for cans. So like paint cans, brake cleaner, spray, aerosol cans, and things like that. So we would cut that steel, and then there would be probably 25 cans on a big sheet. It's essentially a gigantic razor blade.
Mm.
with the print on it, each can, and we'd send it to another factory and they would chop it up and roll it. But there was people there that they got there right out of high school. They were there for over 30 years, some of them, as you were saying, people, and they shut the mill down. But there was guys in there that their attitude was, "Oh, I don't feel good today. I'm not running shit.
Mm,
I'm not going to do anything today, blah blah blah." And then when the mill closed, they were the first ones that were like, "Oh, what are we gonna do?"
mm, mm.
"Well,
And like,
dude,
mhm.
you should have done your job." Like,
And, this is all our first time here. We don't know, but that's again part of the work is family thing. Like I've heard that before. Like, what are they going to do? Fire me? I've been here this long. One woman even said to
yes.
me, she had been at this place for 37 years. And she said anytime something came up where like they wanted to complain to leadership, nobody else would want to say it. And she was like, I'll say it. I've been here 37 years. What are they going to do? Fire me? Well, no, they didn't fire her. They laid her off.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew a guy that he was maintenance, and I think he was there 29 years. It was right at 30 years, and anytime you had to get in a lift to do something overhead, you had to tie off, right? So, they had just gotten in a new safety director there, and this guy would never tied off. Every time, for whatever reason, never even took a harness with him, and he was used to doing that. The safety guy gets there and sees him, and he said, "Hey, you have to wear a harness. You can't be up in there without it." And so gets down, puts it on, and it was about a week later, is up even higher this time with no harness. And they fired him. The safety director came out, saw him up there, and he was like, "I gotta fire you."
Mhm.
The guy's 20 feet in the air with no harness on, and everybody was so mad about it. There was an uproar, but you gotta
They had no
listen.
choice. They had no ch That is a safety issue. What happens
No,
if you get hurt?
yeah,
You're filing a workers' comp claim, and who's paying for that? And you
I
can't allow
mean,
unsafe practices as, like and that's the part where, like, employers have to protect themselves. That's their job. They're doing what they should do. They never promised anything more than that. And so,
no,
again, like, as hard as it is to lay somebody off after 37 years, they never promised you that they wouldn't.
no, no.
That's
There's no
not the
guarantees.
agreement. No, that's not the agreement. We create that and we put all those expectations out there. And then when they don't get met, we're mad. And I mean, I get it. It's traumatizing. It's awful to go through, but they never promised you more than that.
Yeah. Do you see with, any of the companies that you're working with, do you see things going into place to make this better, make workplaces a better environment?
Some, companies
Yeah.
are trying. And honestly, as an HR consultant, people that work with HR consultants are the ones that are trying. Yeah, the companies that want no part of HR, I can't say what they're doing, but they're not working with HR to try to get things better. I work with a lot of companies that are like, okay, we haven't always done things perfectly, or maybe we got burned somewhere and learned a lesson, and now we want to do things the right way. Help us. And I love those companies.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Because we all should be trying to improve everywhere, not only personally, but if you have a business, you should be trying to improve that business as well for your employees and your business.
Mhm.
Because ultimately there's no business without the employees. So
Mhm. And there's
it
no
has to be
employees without the business.
right. It has to be a 50-50 thing where everybody treats everybody fairly, not only the boss treating the employees, but the employees treating the management too with respect. So,
Mhm.
which doesn't always happen for sure.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of it, and it's
Yes, it's happened. It's very common. So what I teach people to do, so I took everything that I learned over my 2 years and created a 90-day program. And so what I teach people in that program is how to regulate your nervous system in the workplace, which it basically helps you recognize, okay, if I'm activated right now, that's really something about that's coming up for me. That's something from my past. It's not necessarily about what's happening right now. So you can start to heal the stuff that you got stuck inside of you that's trying to get your attention through all those nervous system responses and the anxiety, all that's coming up from you. That's something inside of you that's saying, hello, I need some attention. I'm just going to get louder and louder until you pay attention to me. So we have to start paying attention and regulating our nervous system. And then the second part of it is really redefining your relationship with work, seeing it as a contract, not as a family, thinking about where, your work ethic came from, where you learned about work, where we all have these beliefs about work. Like, well, where did that come from? Is that something that still serves you, or do you want to question that now as an adult? Do you want to explore? So that's really the two parts. Let's think about work for what it is, and let's give ourselves a new definition of success at work. And then let's learn how to regulate ourselves and heal any unhealed trauma that we have so that we can be regulated and come from a place where we are, sort of logical and have access to our prefrontal cortex when we make these decisions.
Where would you like to see work is not a family end up in 5 years? What are your goals for that? What would you like to happen out of this?
Wow, that's a really good question. I'm not always a 5 years ahead of time person, which I probably should be more, but you know,
I'm not either.
okay, good. I really just want there to be a resource for people. I was going through everything. Everyone was just like, go to therapy. And I did go to therapy and that helped. So I'm not saying don't do that if that's, something that helps you, but that was the only thing that was available. And it was actually really hard to get a therapist. I could only see her once every 3 weeks. Like, it was just very minimal. And she did help validate my experience. And so she did help me. But in between those sessions, I was going to work. I was being around these people. I was sitting in meetings completely dysregulated and having trauma responses. And I didn't know how to navigate that. What am I supposed to say when he tells me my vibe is off? How am I supposed to act in these meetings in a way that's going to protect my career, but also my mental health? Like, there was just nobody to help walk that path for me. And I just want to do that. Like, I want to do that in whatever way I can that's going to be helpful for people who are struggling in the workplace and feel like they're alone.
That's perfect. Perfect. Where can people find you?
You can check out my website, which is workisnotfamily.com. And my email is katie@workisnotfamily.com. So would love to hear from you. On my website, there's a free resource on there where you can download something that will tell you how to start tracking your nervous system responses at work and kind of what to do about it. So that's a great little starter if you're interested in this. And then if you download that, you also get put on my email list, and I write a blog and send that out. And I pick a topic around like healing in the workplace and send that out with a journal prompt twice a month. So you could start to do some of that healing as well. And then my website also talks about the 90-day program that I have if you're interested on like really looking for, like, if you're really ready to do this, if you're really looking for support of like, okay, I'm ready, I need to do something about this, you could check that out too and schedule a free discovery call with me.
Awesome. Well, you're doing great work. It's definitely a great topic, and I'm super grateful that you're doing this because too many people are suffering. So I'm grateful that you're doing this, and I'm sure a lot of other people are too that you've helped. So
Thank you.
thank you.
Well, thank you for having me and for just giving me the opportunity to be here and share my story. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. It was my pleasure. Thanks.
Thanks, Tommy.